The Dragon Slayer by David Harvey. Part 1. Chapter 1. Duneg the Dragon. Duneg the Dragon gate-crashed Liam's dream in typical fashion. Liam had been fast asleep, dreaming he was soaring through the skies of Zorgonia like an eagle or a dragon. They too could glide effortlessly and magnificently through the sky when they weren't playing games. In his dream, Liam wasn't sure what he was, but he was tumbling and turning, gliding through the sky, swooping low and soaring high, becoming a tiny speck. When the plaintive drawn-out cry pierced his dream, it took time to register. The drawn-out repeated several times, eventually forced him into a fuzzy state of semi-consciousness, dragging him reluctantly from the sky and into uncomprehending, bleary-eyed wakefulness. As he lay there, wondering what part of his dream it fell into, he heard it again, another drawn-out, followed by the sound of a heavy thud, which not only shook the house, but the very earth itself. That got his attention, and he leapt out of bed, rushing outside into the cold morning, where Duneg, one of his dragons, lay just outside the front door in a groaning, crumpled heap. He had what looked like many arrows lodged in various parts of his body, and if a dragon could look miserable, unhappy, embarrassed, and angry simultaneously, that would describe what Liam saw. As his mother and father, Sandrine and Seward, also rushed from the house, Liam was communicating with Duneg and trying to get him to sit upright. He needed to see the extent of his injuries. Normally, dragon skin was very thick and too tough to penetrate with anything but an arrow fired from close range. And the only area where they were really vulnerable was where their heart was, for some peculiar reason. Liam would have thought the area around the heart would be where the skin was thickest, but that was not so. For some strange reason, an arrow could easily kill dragons if hit through the heart, where the skin was thinnest. Fortunately, though, that was not the case for Duneg, but he looked as though he had been used for target practice. "What on earth did you do to yourself?" Liam asked when he finally convinced Duneg to sit up straight so he could walk around and check him carefully. "What happened?" asked both Sandrine and Seward. They often said the same thing at the same time, quite by accident, but as though they both went through the same thought process at the same time. "I was just asking him," replied Liam. "I want him to sit up first and see how many arrows are stuck in him." "Has he told you what happened?" Seward asked as he walked around Duneg behind Liam while they counted the arrows together. "I asked him once, but he didn't answer. I'll try again now," Liam said as he stopped in front of Duneg, reached up on his tiptoes and pulled his massive head down, looking at him directly in the eyes. "No one would dare shoot arrows at you in the kingdom. So where have you been?"
"I was on the other side of the Nordsokragen mountains,
"Doing what?"
hunting for sheep.
"And?"
And in the valley on the far side of the mountains was an army of people. They shot at me when I flew over them to see what they were doing."
"What were they doing?"
"It looks like they were training for something.
"Training for what?"
I hardly had the time to stop and talk to them now, did I? If they shot arrows at me while I was flying, I don't think they were trying to invite me to stop and spend some time with them and share a few sheep for an early breakfast."
"Were there a lot of them?"
"Yes. Many, many of them."
"Okay, we'll talk about that in a moment. First, though, I want to get all these arrows out of you. It might hurt when we take them out. Depending on how deep they are, don't move around and fidget when we do that. Liam looked to Seward and Sandrine and said, he was hunting wild sheep on the other side of the northern border, and there were people in the valley who were practicing. They shot at him when he came close to see what they were doing. Many people or only a few? He says there were a lot, but he's ready for us to take the arrows out, and then we can find out more. While Sandrine went back inside to make breakfast, Seward and Liam gently removed all the arrows, putting them in a pile, which they counted as they pulled them out. There are 37, Seward exclaimed. That seems like it was an attempt to kill him, not scare him away. Liam walked back in front of Dunnock. They hit you with 37 arrows, which means they were very serious about trying to shoot you down. The king is going to want to hear about this. So tell me what they were doing.
I told you, they were practicing.
Yes, but practicing for what?
I would say they were practicing for war. It is the only thing that makes sense, seeing as there were archers and other soldiers and horses, and enough tents that they filled the valley.
Thank you. Dad and I will talk about it, and if we think it is necessary, we will speak to the king. Please do not go back there. I want you alive, my friend. A stomach full of sheep is not a reason to get yourself shot at again.
I will try, but it is fine for you to have a sheep anytime you want. Which is your favorite food? You do not allow us poor dragons to eat goats anymore, which is our favorite food, and the best sheep are the wild sheep in the mountains.
Goats are not the same as sheep. You can eat all the wild sheep you can find. I do not want you getting yourself shot at again just for a few sheep is all I'm saying. Stay this side of the mountains. After he flew off again, Seward and Liam went inside and ate breakfast, discussing what Dunnock had seen and how much of a threat it might have been to Zorgonia itself. They spoke about it long into the morning, but eventually left it because, as Seward said, the risks of trying to cross the mountains made no sense, given how extraordinarily difficult it was. The Norsograngen Mountains were too high, the snow was too deep, and because of the difficult terrain, very few large armies had successfully crossed into Zorgonia in the past. Those who had invaded Zorgonia were usually smaller and more mobile, and looking to supplement their food supplies by stealing from villages and farms they raided once inside Zorgonia. By that stage, though, the dragons who constantly flew around the mountains, either playing or searching for a tasty mountain sheep, would alert the king by flying around his castle continually, and the unicorns and archers were then sent to follow the dragons, and if necessary, sent into battle. All that changed, though, several years after Liam was born.